Morning, everybody ready? Let me start it off, and then I'll turn it over to the mayor. Good morning. We're holding our monthly crime briefing here at the 105 Precinct here in Queens. Take the opportunity to thank those elected officials, some of whom are here, and members of the local community who've worked for years to get an additional precinct station house in this area of Southeast Queens. Must also note the memory of Detective Brian Moore, who lost his life 1 year ago serving the people of the 105 Precinct in the city of New York. There will be a memorial service here at the site of his murder tomorrow, the 1-year anniversary of his death. As we find ourselves saying far too often, the NYPD does not forget its own, its heroes, its family. Of the 77 precincts that cover New York City, the 105 ranks number 5 in both square mileage and population. Not only is the 105 precinct big, but it is long, 8.5 miles long. The current station house, where we are today, is the northern portion of the command. So to get to the southern portion, it would be an 8.5-mile drive as precinct officers leave roll call. Although dedicated patrol coverage has been established in the southern section, the local community has long expressed concerns over the lack of a base of operations in that area. In 2007, the department established a satellite command near the Belt Parkway for local police presence. Satellite was recently expanded in the last several months to, for the first time, provide a 24-hour operations and a dedicated staff. This facility will continue to operate in the area until the new dedicated station house is up and running several years from now. The actual site of the new 116th Precinct, as it will be named, has yet to be officially established. We've already begun an assessment to determine what the staffing needs will be, as well as how the current area of the 105 Precinct and possibly the surrounding precincts may be subdivided to afford better coverage and service. We'll also be working closely with representatives of the local community on these issues, as you might expect. Although the recent introduction of the smartphone technology will significantly reduce the need for our police officers to return to the local station house for various administrative and reporting purposes, such as making out accident reports, the need of the local community to have reasonable access to their precinct staff is extremely important. And the new 116th Precinct will help the residents of this Southeast Queens area to have better and closer access. I'm going to introduce the mayor, following the mayor that in discussions around the new precinct, that Dermot Shea will provide the monthly crime update to you, and then we will be able, Steve Davis will explain the sequence of on-topic and off-topic events. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be in the 105 Precinct. I have to tell you today, Commissioner, I know we're going to hear some statistics on what the NYPD has accomplished in the month of April and what has been accomplished so far this year. I just want to offer my congratulations to you and all the leadership present here because once again, and this I think has to do with the approach that you've taken from the beginning, keep saying the NYPD does not rest on its laurels. It keeps getting better. And we're going to show, again, when we talk about the month of April, continued progress in how this department keeps innovating and strengthening itself. And, Commissioner, that is in large measure due to your leadership. I want to thank you for that. It is powerful to be here at the 105 for many reasons, but first and foremost because this is where Detective Brian Moore served. We miss him. We feel his loss. We know the men and women of this command feel his loss and remember him so fondly. Remember his warmth, remember his laughter, remember his exemplary service. It's just about a year since we lost him, and he is very much on our minds today and will continue to be in our hearts for years and years to come. But it's very appropriate to be here to celebrate at the same time that we're going to be taking a great step forward for this community and doing something that will mean even better policing. And again, this is very much in the vein of the NYPD, never resting on its laurels, constantly looking for better ways to serve the community. What we celebrate today, the new 116th Precinct, is going to be part of making policing in Southeast Queens even better, and that's something to be very, very grateful for. The folks gathered here, I want to thank everyone who is here with us today. I want to acknowledge and thank, you'll hear from Deputy Commissioner Shea in a moment talking about what's been achieved in April, but I want to thank Chief Boyce, Chief Secreto, Chief Fox, Chief Barrera, everyone who is part of the leadership, Chief Gomez, of course, everyone who's part of the leadership who really get the credit with the men and women of the NYPD for all the achievements that we're going to go into. And I want to thank the elected officials who are here with us. You're going to hear from some of them, but also want to thank everyone who's contributed and believed in and fought for these changes, including, of course, the Borough President, Melinda Katz, DA Richard Brown, Councilmember Donovan Richards, and Councilmember Barry Grodanchik. I want to thank the Community Board leadership as well, Community Board 13, Brian Black, the chair, and Mark McMillan, the district manager. Thank you for your leadership. People in this community worked for a long, long time for this change, 30 to 40 years, in fact. And it's a credit to them. I always say that real change comes from the grassroots. It's a credit to them that they believe this could and should happen, and this day has come. But let me put it in context for a moment of how the progress that we're talking about today is going to continue to strengthen. When we say New York City is the safest big city in the country, we have no fear of contradiction in that statement. It's been proven many, many times over. And the first quarter of this year was particularly powerful, lowest number of homicides, lowest number of shootings of any first quarter of any quarter in our history. Now we add to that another important statistic, the fewest shootings of any month in modern history, 68 shootings in a single month, the fewest we've ever seen in any month. These are stunning statistics. These show an approach to policing that literally is getting better all the time and reaching levels that were unimaginable even just a few years ago. But we want to go farther. That's the central message today. We want to go farther. So we're investing $70 million for this new precinct, for the new 116. And we know it will contribute to driving down crime, driving down violence, and addressing quality of life crime. And that's such a concern for so many of the communities of Southeast Queens. The overall numbers, again, are striking. Dermot will go into detail, but citywide overall crime down 4.2% from last April, a 4.2% drop. For the first time ever, burglaries are under 1,000 incidents citywide. And a new record has been set, a new record low for car thefts, 464 cars stolen citywide compared to the previous record of 550. So again, records are being set constantly by the NYPD, and these are numbers, again, I don't think could have been believed even a few years ago that the NYPD would have the ability to reach this. To the commissioner's point about the meaning of the 116, you heard the sheer statistics. This is the 105 covers so much, 350 miles of roadways, and is one of the biggest precincts in the city. The new 116 will mean faster and better police service for the people of Laurelton and Rosedale, Brookville, and Springfield Gardens. And this is what we want to see more of. It fits beautifully with the new neighborhood policing strategy that's being put in place more and more all over the city, bringing the police closer to the people in every way. And when you consider these developments, this progress that's being made, the new investment we're making in this precinct on top of the investments that have been made in technology and in safety for our officers, on top of the investment we're making in counterterrorism activity, on top of the 2,000 new officers who will be on patrol by the end of this year, it adds up to a very positive picture for the safety of the people of this city. Just want to say a few words in Spanish before I pass it back to the Commissioner. El crimen se mantiene en niveles históricamente bajos en nuestra ciudad gracias a la increíble labor del NYPD. Para mejorar aún más nuestra seguridad, vamos a invertir $70 millones en un nuevo cartel de policía en el sureste del Queens. Vamos a trabajar con la comunidad y la policía para buscar el mejor lugar para este proyecto. So as that last sentence, I didn't say it in English, I'll say it in English now. We're going to work with the community leaders present, with civic associations, with clergy to figure out the best location for the new precinct, and then we're going to get to work building it so it can serve the people of Southeast Queens. With that, back to you, Commissioner, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dermot Shea, in a moment, will give you the full update on the crime picture. that the mayor gave a brief summary of. I'd point out that in addition to the crime reduction, and I want to, while we're here in Queens, certainly acknowledge and thank Dick Brown, longest-serving district attorney in the city, for the extraordinary partnership that we have with his office, and certainly here the crime stats in Queens reflect that partnership and the coordinated effort to make this area a much safer area. But I'd point out that with this decrease in crime also comes a very significant decrease in arrests. As you're well aware, we are emphasizing trying to reduce the number of contacts we have with the public that are not necessary to the enforcement of and reduction of crime, and that trend is continuing. Overall arrests are down 10.2%, or 3,047 fewer arrests for the month of April 2016. However, and this is reflective of our precision policing model that we're working with, index crime, the more serious crime, arrests are up almost 7% for April. So fewer arrests for minor offenses, broken windows types of offenses, while at the same time more significant numbers of arrests for the very serious crimes that we're focusing on. Recovered guns are up 19%, or an additional 49 guns for the month of April. Recovered guns are up 16.8%, or 162 for year-to-date in 2016. And I'd remind you that's with about 650,000 fewer stop, question, and frisk activities each year. We're running at a pace this year between 25 to 35,000 stops versus the peak back in 2010 of close to 700,000. So all the numbers are all going in the right direction. The ones we want going down are going down. The ones we want going up are going up. With that, let me turn it over to Dermot Shea, who will give you a more intimate picture of where we are year to date, as well as the specificity of the month of April. Dermot.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Bratton just mentioned Judge Brown in the Queens District Attorney's Office, but I specifically wanted to begin with that. I often sit up here as the face of crime to report the good or the bad as each month passes. But it is, as we have said many times, a shared responsibility. And what we are accomplishing, the excitement that we see across the city right now, we may be the face, but we have many partners. And I'm speaking to the 5 district attorneys, the special narcotics prosecutor, our federal partners, Eastern and Southern District, as well as our law enforcement partners, probably too many to name. But the FBI, you saw the case takedown in the Bronx last week, spearheaded by Homeland Security. All of these partners, I truly believe it's been said before, but never as before have we been working closer with them, sharing data, combining strategies, and I think you're seeing the fruits of the labor in these numbers that we're going to get into. So my many thanks to our partners, and the incidents of shared productivity are too much to mention. Overall index crime for the month of April, as you heard, fell 4.2%. That brings us to approximately a 1% increase for the year-to-date. That boils down to 2 simple facts. We're carrying an extra year this year with the leap year, and we're seeing an increase in an extra day. We're seeing an increase in grand larceny complaints, particularly skimming. And this is a crime that we think with crime prevention outreach, the community's help, we think we can really make a significant impact. But I'll get into that at the end. This crime reduction that we're seeing for the month of April spread across New York City. 4 of the 5 boroughs saw a crime decrease, and I'm very happy to report that Queens was one of those 4 boroughs. The one borough that we saw a crime increase in April was the Bronx, with approximately an 8% crime increase. In addition to the overall index crimes, some of the benchmarks that you heard mentioned, grand larceny auto, stolen cars, never before have we seen this low of an April. Burglaries, under 1,000 for the first time in New York City in recorded history. Incidents, shooting incidents, historic lows. So those are some of the highlights for this particular month. When you look at homicides recorded in New York City in April of 2016, we recorded 27 homicides. That's versus 25 for April of 2015. When you look at recorded incidents that happened during the month, we were actually flat, 25 versus 25. We added on 2 additional homicides this April that occurred in the past and were ruled homicides now. One in 2005, one in 2010, one from the 9th Precinct, one from the 42nd Precinct in the Bronx. So we maintain a level very close to the all-time low in homicides. And as the year goes on, that's one of those records that we clearly want to surpass. Shooting incidents. We were down 19 shooting incidents for the month of April. I think even the most seasoned people sitting amongst me here and throughout the ranks of the NYPD continue to be amazed at the shooting levels in New York City that we are seeing right now. This is unprecedented levels. For April, we had a 21% reduction. As of midnight last night, I believe the number was 49 fewer shooting incidents this year, a double-digit decrease in shooting incidents. What you're seeing is a blending of multiple strategies, a momentum building in New York City that is frankly quite exciting. When you look at the data, the tools that are available to the men and the women of the New York City Police Department, the collaboration with our partners throughout New York City, we believe that we are not at the end, we are closer to the beginning. And it is exciting to see really how low we can push this crime down. Transit crime has been discussed as I look at Joe Fox. Earlier this year, we had a spike in transit crime. Transit came in the month of April with a significant crime decrease and now sits at approximately 5% up for the year, and we're very confident that we can get that below by the end of the year. The Commissioner mentioned arrests, and I'll just briefly highlight a few of those numbers again. For the month of April alone, we effected 3,000 fewer arrests citywide. We sit approximately 2% down in arrests this year, which may not seem like a large number until you realize that we were down 12% last year, and we were down again from 2013 to 2014. So we continue to identify, the recurring theme is here, a scalpel, and we continue to identify areas that we can make fewer arrests while not impacting negatively on crime. And quite the contrary, we continue to push crime down significantly with those fewer arrests. Bob Boyce's detective arrests up significantly. Felony arrests up. Index crime arrests up. The Commissioner mentioned gun seizures and arrests up. So these are the metrics that we're most interested in. I will finish and be available for questions at the end, but with what I began with the grand larceny, something that oftentimes goes unnoticed. What we're seeing lately is an increase in this white-collar type of crime. We're up about 600 complaints in New York City this year of grand larcenies, and it's one that really affects everyone. And what we're seeing lately is a trend away from bank ATMs. The criminals are learning, and we will adapt to smaller locations without video cameras, where they attach these skimming devices. So you will see in the days and weeks to come an increased outreach by us to try to get the word out to the community on that. But just to be aware, whenever you're using an ATM machine, whether it's in a hotel, it's in a retail establishment, or it's on a sidewalk, all right? The criminals have and continue to target these locations. They are very difficult to note and to see if they are there, but we don't want to see anyone become a victim in this type of crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Dermot. I'd point out, you reported very significantly last week the major gang takedown with Preet Bauer's office. That was certainly one of a very large scale. I would emphasize, however, that our focus on gangs, the majority of our gangs in the city, are much smaller than that gang or 2 gangs we dealt with last week. So we will be continuing literally on an ongoing weekly basis, taking down these gangs. We'll have one later this week, about 15 people that were moving on. Small gang, but their capacity to terrorize their particular couple of blocks is significant. So the gang emphasis, the precision focus on them, and the resultant impact in reduced shootings and violence are going to continue as a trend here in the city. With that, Mr. Mayor, if I could turn it back over to you to go back on to with our guests, the elected officials on the precinct.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank again all of the elected officials who intensely supported this effort over years to better serve the people of Southeast Queens. And I'm going to just go from this direction over, starting with the Borough President. And thank you, Borough President, for all your support. Borough President Melinda Katz.
Thank you, and good morning, afternoon to everyone, and welcome to Queens. We appreciate that everyone came out here today for this great announcement. I want to thank the mayor for his extraordinary commitment to Southeast Queens. His extraordinary commitment to Southeast Queens. We have been working together since day one with the mayor, with his administration, with different parts of the administration on all different aspects of Southeast Queens. We have a record-breaking Jamaica Now initiative, which will put Wi-Fi on the streets of Jamaica. He has contributed greatly of the city budget to our sewer system because we were a lot underwater on a regular basis every time it rained. And that commitment really needs to be noted today. So in addition to committing himself to capital money and making sure that he's responding, we're now talking about the safety of individuals that live in Southeast Queens. We're talking about the fact that Queens is a borough of families. People come from all over the world just to raise their kids right where we are sitting today. And that is something to be honored, and that is something that is a privilege to this great borough. And we've been working for 116th Precinct, I don't even know how long. I mean, if I tell you how long, it's aging myself, so I'm not doing that. But I will tell you that it's been a very long time since the neighborhoods of Laurelton and Rosedale and Brookfield and Springfield Gardens have been asking for this precinct. The precinct was just too big. And no matter who the leadership was of the 105, they worked so hard to make sure to respond as much as they possibly could, with response times being what they were. But at the end of the day, the 116th Precinct will save lives. And the response of the administration in doing it, and you know, I'm one of the folks that have been around for a long time, and I will tell you, this has been a fight. So the mayor has been in office for 2 years, and we have the 116th Precinct committed to. I am looking forward to working on the analysis with the community to figure out the geography, the population, and the types of services that we need to take into account. I want to thank Commissioner Bratton for his commitment as well. I see him very often in Queens, Commissioner, and we appreciate that. And the District Attorney and Councilmember Richards and Grodenchik, and the Community Board. This has been a joint effort. So we thank everyone for the attention that has been spent to Southeast Queens. And more than anything, we thank you for doing an initiative that we truly believe will save lives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Amen. Thank you very much, Borough President. As you heard before, our most experienced district attorney and someone who has done so much for so long to drive down crime and create safety for the people of Queens and all of New York City, Judge Richard Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how many of you know this, but I'm a product of Southeast Queens. I graduated from PS 147 in Cambria Heights in 1945. It's before most of you were born. And then I went on to Andrew Jackson High School. And Melinda is absolutely right when she says that this new precinct has been talked about. I remember it being talked about when I graduated from high school.
Wow.
It'll provide for greater efficiency. It's going to bring our police officers closer to the communities in which they're sworn to serve, and they'll be able to better address our community concerns. But I also want to commend both the mayor and the police commissioner for not only making the new precinct happen, but I think equally significantly in terms of the crime stats. I have regular meetings within my office at 8 o'clock with my senior staff and our bureau chiefs. For the first 4 months in Queens, our homicides are down from 28 last year to 12 this year. That's a 57% decrease. Our auto crime stats are down another 29%. I mean, that's true all across the board. And it's true because of the fact that all of us are working together in partnership. So I just want to commend Bill Bratton and the mayor and all of our colleagues in government, but particularly the the NYPD and for the work that they do. And I may think in terms now of going on and getting my master's degree.
We look forward to that, Judge. I want to be at that graduation.
All right, fair enough.
As I turn to our council members, I want to say, because I have the pleasure of working with the council on a regular basis, and they were adamant and often reminded me on why this issue mattered so much. And Donovan Richards, you will never be accused of being shy and retiring. You are quite an aggressive spokesperson for your community, so we welcome you. Councilmember Donovan Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Bratton. I remember just being elected a shy, I think 2 months in, and meeting with Commissioner Bratton in his office and saying, when are we going to get this new precinct? And he said, I want to be frank with you, Donovan. The mayor has to make that call. And
It's called passing the buck.
exactly, he passed the buck. And I left that meeting more determined than ever,
That's right.
but I'm glad you answered the call. We were just together Sunday in Southeast Queens at a few churches, and I mentioned to the mayor in the back, faith without works is dead.
Yes.
So I'm very happy that we both had faith, but that your work is speaking for what we need, in particular in this community. And just in terms of just want to give a perspective of how long this conversation has been going on. I was not even born when this conversation started, let alone my mother was 10 when this conversation started. So I wasn't even a thought. But the 105 truly, and as the mayor said, is one of the largest precincts covers one of the largest geographic areas in Queens in particular. And just to put this in perspective, it covers 354 miles of roadways, including 7 major highways. And just to put it a little bit more into perspective, this is more highway miles than a trip to Boston or Washington, D.C.
Very nice.
So that's how much this precinct actually covers. For the people in the room from Southeast Queens, this has been a conversation ongoing, and this is truly about equity. This is about ensuring that we got less taxation without representation. And today, we have good representation in the mayor and obviously my colleagues in government, and that's why we're here today. And I don't think the people of Southeast Queens were asking for anything in particular special. We deserve proper public safety. When we call the police, it should not take them 2 hours to get to the other portion of the district, to no fault of their own in most cases. And I want to commend the 105 for the work that they do every day. But this was a big task for them. I mean, if they're even located at this precinct, to get to the furthest end of this of my district, it could take a half an hour, even with sirens on. So it was unfair to them when we look at crime stats in particular, to say that our crime stats are increasing when they covered such a big geographic area in particular. So this goes back to ensuring that public safety was put on the map, and like I said, I'm very happy that the mayor took this seriously. Now, I do have to admit, last month we extended the satellite hours at the satellite precinct, which made a difference. And as someone who lives off of Merrick Boulevard, I can tell you that we saw much more of a presence, in particular in our area. But today, to come back today, and most people said to me that you had a better chance at winning the lotto than to getting a 116th precinct actually for our community. But today I'm happy to say that we've actually achieved that. And I just want to congratulate many of the people in the room who fought for this, who when I came into office said, this is a priority, we need to get this done. And while I can take credit, these were the people who were fighting, and I want to just congratulate the Rosedale Civic Association, the 116th Precinct Task Force, which is comprised of many of the civic associations in our area, the Federated Blocks of Laurelton, and I want to thank my colleague, Barry Gredenchik. I got it right this time, right? All righty. I got it. It doesn't happen often. But I want to thank him because he came into the council in a special election this year, and we got together over a cup of coffee and said, we're going to push this rock up over hill. And today that we're here celebrating this. So, Mr. Mayor, I look forward to seeing the new precinct built sooner than in a few years. Next year would be great. But I know our community will be pushing.
Don't push your luck.
I know our community will be pushing very aggressively to ensure that this happens. So I want to thank you. And the City Council obviously will vote on the budget, and I can assure you all 51 members will certainly support the new 116th Precinct. And I want to thank the Borough President and obviously our colleagues in government from Southeast Queens who are not here, who also helped make this day possible. Thank you all.
Thank you. And it doesn't surprise me, the story you told about Barry. I would say no one knows Queens better than the borough president. No one fights for Queens harder than the borough president. No one's more persistent than the borough president. But someone who would be on the all-time list would be, because he's hardly a stranger to serving the public. Council member Barry Grodenchik, we welcome you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this is on. Yeah, I was here last week. I was here with the 105 commander for the Precinct Community Council. It just so happened that the day after the announcement was made by the mayor that we were going to have a new precinct here. So I came here and I listened to Inspector Schiff, and it's great to have him here, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Commissioner, because he is a local product. He grew up in Belrose, and he's a graduate of Martin Van Buren High School, which we're soon going to get off the renewal list. But you got to kill a lot of birds with one stone.
Covering a lot there.
So I spoke, and I came really to thank people. I see Besta Betham is here, and so many of the people who have pushed this rock up the hill for 4 decades. And so when I was done speaking, I took one question. And one woman in the back, you're only as good as your last whatever, and she said, when's it going to get built? So we're going to stay on that. Donovan and I will stay on that with the borough president, with the district attorney. I want to really thank everybody because, my civic leaders, I sent out that note, and I think every single one of them sent me back a thank you. I thank the mayor. I thank the police commissioner, the borough president, my colleagues, because they have been working in the northern part of this command forever. And one of them said, you cannot overstate how important this is to the public safety of the over almost 200,000 people who live in this command now. So I want to thank the mayor. You are the 8th mayor of my life, all right? I've met them all except for Lindsay. I met Wagner when I was a toddler. He pinched my tuchus, my mother said, but that's a long time ago.
This is too much information.
There's too much information. But it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. But this mayor is the mayor that got it done. We've been fighting for 40 years out here. Melinda and I worked for previous borough president Claire Schulman. This has been an issue forever out here. So, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the people that I serve in the northern part of this command, and really all the people of Eastern Queens, thank you from the bottom of our heart, and we will work with you to get this done. It'll be next year, right, Donovan? Yep. Okay. Thank you all and for being here today.
What we're going to do now is we'll take some questions on this topic, and then we'll transition to other police topics, but we'll allow some of our guests to lead in the meanwhile. So if you have any questions on this particular topic, please take now.
Yes.
Tom? Yeah. Hi, Tom Tracy from the Daily News. I'm just curious, when was the last time a police precinct was built? Because there's been a lot of talk about, renovating and retrofitting precinct houses over the years.
It'd be Staten Island, the 121, several years ago. Back in the 90s, we created an additional precinct up in the Bronx, the 3-4. So 20 years ago, when I was commissioner the last time, we created one. And then a couple of years ago in the 121 out in Staten Island. And so I'm pleased to be police commissioner once again when we're actually expanding the number of precincts once again.
On the topic of the precinct, see if there's any questions? Yes, Rich.
So when will this get done?
You went to the heart of the matter, didn't you? Okay, well, I'll start and defer to NYPD after. First, we need a location, and that's, again, a process we have to go through with the community, and it has to be a location that can work, for everyone's needs. And then we'll get to work as quickly as possible building. But I know NYPD has to make sure the location works and think about whatever realignment comes with that.
Again, it is a multi-year process. However, as the council member referenced, that we recently made the substation a full-time police facility. So officers report there for roll call. They roll out of there to answer calls in that area. So the area will receive a significant increase in coverage in the interim till the new facility is in fact actually built. And when that facility is built, it would require additional personnel to be assigned out here. So they get the benefit of not only an additional precinct, but additional personnel at that time.
Okay, on this topic of the precinct,
Once the precinct, the 116 is built, what will happen? I know you said the satellite precinct will continue throughout, but what will happen with it after?
That satellite station will be used for other purposes, whether it's police purposes or maybe returned back to the community for other uses.
okay, media question, yes.
Yeah.
Is it a media question?
Yes.
Yes.
Newsday.
There you go.
How long ago was the 105, open? And, when did they draw the boundaries? If anybody knows, perhaps Judge Brown.
It's old. But police precincts are supposed to be coterminous with community board boundaries. So there are some community boards in Queens, as the borough president can tell you, that have two precincts in them. The community board 12 has the 103 and the 113. But this goes on forever. I mean, it goes from North Shore Towers all the way down to, the bottom of Rosedale. I mean, it's. Take a look at the map right there. It's right outside. It's just unbelievable.
105 was opened in 1929.
I was not here.
Folks, so we're going to allow some of our guests to leave now, and then we'll transition into other police-related topics. So if you just give us a few minutes, and anyone here that needs to, we're going to thank you all.
Miller wants them up or no? Mayor said that. Mayor said
Here we go. Okay, we're going to, let's get reassembled here, everyone. We're going to go to other police topics, so we're going to give people a couple more seconds to make your move.
All right, is everybody all set? We set? You're going to have to stay down in front of you. During the question, you don't mind. Stay down in front. No, I'm okay. I'm moving. All right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, other police topics. Way in the back.
You said we have more crew roundups to look to, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the use of social media, Instagram, Facebook, to figure out who is involved. Can you talk about the kind of line there? Like if a kid who lives in a housing uses a hashtag that's associated with a crew, does that make them part of the crew? Or what's the kind of line where crew members become someone you would arrest?
First off, those who commit crime. And suggest that the young man or woman that you're describing, that if they want to be identified as a member of a crew, I'd strongly discourage that, because that's the quickest way to get on our radar. And when you get on our radar, we're going to focus on you and we're going to zero in on you. So basically stay out of crews and stop bragging. Dermot, if you want to speak to that.
I would just say that, in the last few years, as evidenced by the arrest numbers, the cases clearly are continuing. And the message is, if you're in a gang and you want to be involved in violence or pick up a handgun in New York City, we are going to come after you. That's the clear message. With that said, everyone that gets on Facebook and makes a statement on Facebook does not necessarily, obviously, make it to criminal action. And we are very selective when we do our cases, and we pare down when appropriate, in conjunction, hand in hand with the prosecutors to get the greatest impact on these. But just this week, with the use of social media, we took 2 firearms off the street throughout New York City. And I won't go into further details than that, but the message is clear. We are not done coming after violent people in New York City.
2 questions. First, can you talk about the ceremony for Brian Moore tomorrow? Who will be there? When is it? Will you be there, Mr. Mayor? And second of all, can you talk about the arrest in the 78th precinct of a burglar in Park Slope?
Reference to the ceremonies, the memorial service tomorrow. There'll be further details on that coming out this afternoon. As it relates to the incident you're referring to, as is our practice, I'll let and ask Chief Boyce to fill you in on the details of the specific case. And if there are other questions relative to current crime incidents that you're interested in, Chief Boyce can also, with the most knowledge, speak to those for you. Bob?
The arrest in the 7-8 of a burglar, I'll have to get back with the specifics of it because I don't have it in front of me right now. So we'll see you on the side. We'll give it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Albany testifying at the State Senate Committee on Education.
Commissioner, could you talk about the Lichtenstein gun seizures and if you have any at all concerns about the gun owners who have yet to voluntarily turn those guns over?
The case you're referring to is the one that involves our gun licensing unit. We have a major investigation in partnership with the U.S. Attorney and FBI on some of the activities that may have occurred in that unit. We are also in the process of conducting our own in-house series of audits on that unit. To put it into perspective, in the city of New York at this particular time, we have 94,419 handguns registered, and we have 52,498 rifles and shotguns. So approximately 150,000 firearms registered in a population of 8.5 million people. The United States have over 300 million firearms for about 300 million people. So we have many fewer firearms that are registered here than in the country as a whole. In terms of the numbers of licenses, we issue license for business carry, guard carry, limited carry, business premises, long gun permits, residence premises, special carry, and retired police officers. We have over 16,000 police officers who are licensed to carry a concealed weapon in the city of New York. In terms of the investigation that we are focused on at the moment, that investigation, out of all of that, is focused on about 246 particular licenses at this time, 246. That we have already pulled 6 permits in which we have ordered the person to return the license and the firearm. There are 11 pending revocation, which I believe will probably occur this week. And meanwhile, we are looking at the approximately 250 other cases of interest to us at this time. I would point out that the revocations that have occurred, as well as the 11 that I referenced that will occur this week, do not involve, at this instance, allegations that have been raised about the issue of bribery. These are rather insufficient paperwork, inappropriate paperwork, and so the scope of the investigation is certainly on allegations of criminal wrongdoing and licenses that may have been issued as part of a criminal conspiracy. At the same time, we are also going to work very hard to improve our administrative practices on this issue that the department treats very seriously, and the city treats very seriously, and the state treats very seriously. Gun ownership, licensing, who gets them and for what purpose. We probably have the tightest gun control laws of just about any city in America. We want to keep it that way, and that's why the seriousness of this, that we are focusing a lot of energy and resources on it. This week I assigned one of our inspectors from the Internal Affairs Bureau who's been involved in the investigation to be the commanding officer of that unit, so that I have a comfort level that his intimacy of the investigation will assist him with the multifaceted activities that we have underway in that unit.
Police topics.
Commissioner Bratton or Detective Chief Boyce, are you going to be able to talk about the floater and the 6 women?
What?
Sure. We have recovered remains. 6 points. Yesterday morning, about 10:30, a student from Kingsborough Community College saw a body washed ashore in Sheepshead Bay. Notified the fire department, who notified the police department. We responded. Right now, we're seeking to identify that person. We're investigating as a homicide. This individual was wrapped in black plastic bags, and his arms were tied behind him, and his feet were submerged in poured concrete. Obviously, a homicide. So we're going forward with that now. He does have some substantial tattooing on his back. It is an image of the Virgin Mary with a rose. We'll have pictures of him, a sketch of his face going out tonight, as well as a sketch of that tattoo in order to identify this individual. So right now it's a homicide investigation, and we'll go forward in that fashion. The ME is doing the autopsy today. We'll determine about how long that person was in the water. So that's where we are right now, trying to identify the body.
Commissioner, about a week ago we asked this question after you came back from the Mideast, but in those 7 days or so, have you been briefed about any more situations with the FBI IAB investigation, and do you anticipate, as a result of those briefings that you've had, any more disciplinary action being taken?
I'm briefed every day in person by my Chief of Internal Affairs, Joe Resnick. So I receive briefings every day as to the activities of that joint investigation with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI. It's an ongoing investigation, and each day we are interviewing people, and each day the investigation is continuing. So as it unfolds and we have information we can share with you in the spirit of transparency that we have showed so far on this, I'll explain to you when we are transferring personnel, when we're modifying personnel, when we're arresting personnel, when we're firing personnel. So it'll be on a day-by-day basis. I would take this opportunity, however, to offer clarification. I think one of the statements I made was unfortunately taken out of significant context by one of the media outlets and then basically mirrored by many of you. I made a comment that this investigation was worse in some respects, the worst one since the Knapp Commission. Let me clarify. My comment that day was very specific to the fact that because it involved a number of very senior officials in the NYPD, that was the first time in my understanding of the history of the department that we had had that level of involvement going back to the Knapp Commission. What we are engaged in right now, the scope of this investigation as we understand it, and I'm very intimate with it, that there's nothing going on in this investigation I'm not aware of. This in no way mirrors in any way, shape, or form the scale and size of that systemic citywide corruption in the 1970s. I had dinner with Bob McGuire, who was one of the commissioner at the tail end of those investigations, and he confirmed what was going on back in those days. Bob McGuire actually represented Serpico and Lieutenant Jurek during that period of time. What we have is a number of senior officials and a number of other police officers, but it is nowhere that we can, in no way systemic throughout the organization. It is contained as far as the scope of it. So thank you for the opportunity to make that clarification. This is not the Knapp days all over again, if you will. This department is a very good police department. It has an extraordinary internal affairs capability to investigate itself. And one of the reasons why the U.S. Attorney and the FBI are so willing to have our complete and intimate involvement is the fact that there is that trust level with them. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm good. Okay. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, why haven't you met with the mother of Romarley Graham? It was pointed out by the New York Times that you met with Mr. Blake, but haven't met with Graham's mother.
Very different circumstances. The broad standard we hold is once there is disciplinary action underway by an agency that I have ultimate responsibility for, it's not appropriate to meet with the family members. The Blake situation, as you remember, we instantaneously saw the video. It was before any of the disciplinary processes had gotten underway. So very different situation. Look, what happened to Romarley Graham was obviously a tragedy, and my heart goes out to the family And there will be, because now the Justice Department has concluded its activities, there will be a disciplinary process by the NYPD, and that's been made very clear to the Graham family.
All right, so folks, what we're going to do now is we'll excuse our police officials. I understand the mayor is going to stand by a little bit longer. Okay, so just give us a minute for transition if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay. And showtime. Questions? Questions? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the Board of Elections is expected to certify election results this week. Are you satisfied with the actions they've taken to address the possible disenfranchisement of 126,000 Brooklyn voters?
Look, I think it's clear that a lot has to be addressed at the Board of Elections. And I've spoken clearly about the changes they should make administratively, including changes that we will help to provide resources for if we get a clear written memorandum of understanding and binding memorandum of understanding. I've been clear, I think we need bigger changes through legislation in Albany to professionalize and modernize the board. In terms of what happened on Election Day and the impact, I think obviously we need to get all the details, all the results. I can't imagine a scenario where it would have changed the outcomes given the magnitude of what we saw in each case. But it is certainly another example why we need fundamental change at the Board of Elections. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, did you read the Conflict of Interest Board letter to Lawrence Laufer about the Campaign for One New York?
I want to be careful about what I read in what sequence. I can tell you this much. We sought Conflict of Interest Board clearance in a variety of situations and then followed those instructions very consistently. And a number of people were involved in ensuring that there was follow-up on that guidance on a consistent basis. So that was, the whole point was to go to the Conflict of Interest Board, which, by the way, if you check your history, there are many cases in New York City history where people did not first go to the Conflict of Interest Board before doing something. We really believe in doing that. And we got that guidance. We followed that guidance throughout, and we'll continue to follow that guidance.
Did you yourself read any of the letters from them?
I know at different times I have read some of their letters, but I want to, again, in the interest of absolute consistency and clarity, say I can't give you the sequence of which letter I read when and if I read every single one, but I can tell you that the guidance was always explained to me by lawyers, and lawyers were involved in every step of the process to make sure the guidance was consistently followed.
That letter says matters pending or about to be pending, that donors who had matters pending or about to be pending before the city shouldn't have given money. Does that phrase, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so this is why we have the Conflict of Interest Board, and this is why we have lawyers to interpret each definition. And I'll let, obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll let better legal minds explain the nuances. But the point is, we believe, and this is how we comported ourselves and everything, we believe in disclosure. We believe in seeking guidance from the relevant regulatory body and then following that guidance. And that is not something I pretend to interpret. I go to a lawyer to interpret it. And then literally what the lawyer says is applied case by case very consistently. Each individual case is looked at. Each individual name is looked at. And when a specific situation is taking place. So here's what I'm confident of. I'm confident of the fact that we handled everything legally and ethically, that we did the things I wish more people would do in public service. We sought guidance from an ethics board. We followed that guidance, and we disclosed everything we did. Some of the questions that you or anyone else might ask are based on disclosure, right? You're literally looking at individual names because we told you so you could ask the question. I think the more interesting, bigger issue we're confronting in the state of New York and federally is no such disclosure is required. And a number of people are doing things without any attempt at disclosure. So we're very comfortable. We do the disclosure because we believe it's the right thing to do. We go beyond the law. We're also very comfortable that in disclosing it, you will ask lots of tough questions, and we can show you how we very scrupulously followed the law and followed the ethical guidance. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, the Campaign for One New York took donations from people like Wendy New and Steve Nislik and 1199 and DC 37 and Two Trees and James Capolino and the developers at the Brooklyn Public Library, those are all people who had matters pending before the city.
Again, this is a very important thing to get the definitions right on, which is why we went to the Conflict Interest Board, got a definition, and then had lawyers determine how to follow those definitions. So I'm very, very comfortable. Again, it's all been disclosed because we're comfortable. That's the right thing to do, to disclose to begin with. But we're disclosing things because we have confidence in the fact also that we followed the specific guidance we received.
So under the lawyer's definition, people like Wendy New and Steve Mislick did not have matters
Again,
pending?
what I want you to understand is the Conflict Interest Board laid out a set of rules, and we followed those rules. It's as simple as that, and we can show you case by case. Okay?
Mayor, Sheldon Silver, who's being sentenced today, had argued that his outside income was legal and that many people in Albany had done the same thing as he did in working outside of his office. Do you think it was appropriate for the U.S. Attorney to prosecute him?
I don't know the details of the case. I think it's a tragedy what happened. I think it's exceedingly sad. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the details of the case. I think it's clear that something was done wrong, but I can't go into the nuances of it.
Do you think, the response that you've been giving to some of the investigations into your campaign finance, that things were legal and that you had followed all of the appropriate rules, do you think that that might remind people of the argument that Mr. Silver made?
No, I think these are entirely different matters. First of all, to the credit of everyone involved in this discourse, no one's talking about anyone lining their pockets, which unfortunately has happened in way too many instances. The things we're talking about is that we were trying to achieve, working with outside colleagues, things like pre-K for all, affordable housing programs, a Democratic state Senate that we thought would better serve the interests of the people of New York State and New York City. So I think that's apples and oranges to begin with. But again, there's some questions being asked, some investigations going on. We've said we will fully cooperate, will openly and happily cooperate, because we're comfortable that we did everything the right way, which is the same point about disclosure. People who don't disclose, you really should have a lot of questions about. And they're in this state and in this country, any number of people. I mentioned a few days ago, millions and millions of dollars of advertising was utilized against me when I first became mayor. You don't know the names of who those people are. I don't know the names of who those people are. Under the law, sadly, they could put millions of dollars up. They happen to be wealthy individuals in the hedge fund industry. That much we know. And there's no way for us to know even who they are and what interests they represent. We certainly saw at the state level, millions, tens of millions of dollars collected with no disclosure whatsoever. So we believe in disclosure, and we believe in following the letter and spirit of law, in fact, going the extra mile and seeking guidance, in this case, as we were discussing earlier, from the Conflict Interest Board. I think that's how people should comport themselves. I think the other cases you're referring to are entirely different matters and unfortunately very tragic matters. Yes?
You're talking about go to your lawyers, seek advice in terms of these definitions. First of all, do you think you've been well served? There's 5 investigations into various practices. Do you think you've been well served by the advice that you've gotten from those lawyers? And it also seems as if they were playing very close to the line at the very least.
Well, that's an editorial comment. I don't agree with that. I think, again, I'm never surprised if someone comes to these discussions with a worldview, but let me offer you what I think is objective truth. And I'd urge you, please, to look at history and see if you can find many other situations that parallel ours. Find me situations where people went and sought Conflict Interest Board guidance up front so frequently. Find me situations where each individual phone call was vetted by lawyers to make sure they were in compliance. The call was in compliance with the Conflict Interest Board. Find me situations where people voluntarily disclose beyond the requirements of the law. And again, what were we trying to achieve? Pre-K, affordable housing, a Democratic state Senate. So I think I've been well served. I think all the people I've worked with were trying to figure out the right and legal and appropriate ways to achieve those goals. I'm proud to say in the case of pre-K we achieved it. In the case of affordable housing we achieved it.
Why do you think there are so many investigations then?
I don't conjecture. I can say I think there should be a fair standard. I think there should be a consistent and fair standard. And another thing that we've made very clear, and I've said it to you guys many times, we're very comfortable. We've said it to the U.S. Attorney repeatedly. We are happy to assist and work together in any way possible if there's any concerns they have. But we're convinced that things were done legally and appropriately. And, again, I think it's a very important fact when someone discloses voluntarily, it suggests comfort that they have, that they're doing things the right way. Yeah.
There was a Department of Investigation report out this morning. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, looking at ACS and a number of incidents.
I've not seen the formal report. I have a summary of it, though.
Okay. I mean, the idea is that there was cases, 2 fatalities and 1 near fatality, where ACS had opportunities to intervene and did not due to a number of failings. I'm just wondering if you have any response to that.
Yeah, we're making a series of changes. I think the report is important because it's pointing out things we have to do better. Now, as you know, those cases go back years in some cases, so some of the things happened before we got here. But the bottom line is I never accept the notion that we can't do better to protect our children. My view is our job is to literally save every child. That is the standard I hold. And we're putting substantial investments in to increase the amount of preventative services, to reduce the caseloads for our workers, to improve the training. I think all these things will really have an effect. But this is an area I think I've worked a lot on before I became mayor, and I care deeply about, and I'm going to drive reform at ACS further. But it will take real investment, and we're committed to making that investment. It's in the budget. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, on the 2014 State Senate matter, two parts. One, you've said you're confident that everything you did was legal, and you've pointed to others doing similar tactics with county committees and candidate campaigns. The BOE referral seems to get at the highly coordinated level of it as exceptional. Has that given you any pause that maybe some of what your team did was, especially coordinated? There's that email about, is the $60,000 there yet?
No, it doesn't give me any pause. And I would urge, again, I imagine a lot of people have read Lawrence Laufer's 7-page letter. It's really worth reading because it points out not just how everything was done consistently with the law, but the long history. And I think sometimes in the commentary there's been this subtext of, well, because there's a long history doesn't make something right. I understand that theory. But the law is the law, and party committees play a role in our system. I think this has even been coming out at the federal level, where there was a discussion of why was Hillary Clinton raising money for the Democratic National Committee or for Democratic congressional candidates. I'd ask everyone to pause for a moment. There's a absolutely clear history, legal appropriate history, of people working on behalf of their party and other members of their party. And this is squarely in that tradition and appropriately legal. So I think a lot of conflating went on in that Board of Elections memo, which, as I've said, I think it's very important you all look into why that memo was created, what it was motivated by, who asked for it to be created, why it was leaked to the press, which is inappropriate. But I'm absolutely convinced that everything was done consistently with the law. Now, if you say we don't believe there should be party entities working with candidates, then that's a great concept. Go and change the law. But, I go back to one of my first experiences in state politics. In 1996, I was the coordinated campaign director for New York State. And the whole idea of the state Democratic Party trying to elect everybody from President of the United States through members of Congress to state senators, state assembly members, this is part of what's legal and appropriate in the state, and we were squarely within that tradition.
The second part is you're going to Albany, as you mentioned, tomorrow to face state Senate Republicans, and obviously you were trying to remove them from power in 2014. With all of this in the news, you have a sense of what your reception is going to be like tomorrow, and are you worried that that will color how mayoral control is dealt with?
It shouldn't. If we're talking about the needs of 1.1 million kids and millions of their family members, it should be about the substance. Here's another thing I want to advise. I think everyone in the context of New York City, New York State may have a certain set of assumptions that I'm not sure are fair because we have a particular political history. I know many members of the U.S. Senate, many members of the U.S. House of Representatives over many years. They work very hard to elect the members of their own party. When those elections are over, until recently obviously there's been a bigger partisan divide, but that's been much more about the Tea Party, et cetera. But for decades, once those elections were over, people went back to work on legislation. You can name innumerable examples of bipartisan legislation in the history of the Congress. But when it was election season, people wanted to be in the majority. They believed in their party and its values. They wanted, as leaders, to be in the majority where they could make more impact. They worked hard for their party. Look at Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer led the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. I'm very hopeful he'll be our next Senate Majority Leader, but he's well known to have the ability to work with people across the aisle. That doesn't stop them from fighting during election, as they should. Here in this state, there's been, I think, a very troubling history of a willingness of leaders in one party to help the other party stay in power. And you can all look into that history for yourself. But I don't think there's anything unusual about a proud Democrat wanting to see Democrats in leadership in the state Senate, believing it's best for the state and best for the city. I think that's normal. If the members of the other party have a problem with it, well, then act on that electorally, but don't take it out on the children in New York City. That would be my simple statement. So I'm going to go and present the facts about why mayoral control is the only system of education governance that's ever worked. It was started by Michael Bloomberg, to his great credit. I've credited him many times. It was supported by the legislature twice, to their credit. And it should continue to be supported with enough of an extension to allow us to continue to do the work effectively. That's what this should be about, not who someone supported in an election.
Are you referring to Governor Cuomo there when you mentioned someone from one party supporting power for the other party?
I'm referring to more than one person, but I think you can put together all the pieces. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, can you explain why soliciting a donation that's 10 times the limit that you're allowed to give to an individual candidate, getting that donation, giving it to a county committee?
Again, just look at Mr. Laufer's letter. You can ask it any way you want.
Knowing that it's going to go to an individual candidate. I understand why that might be legal, but why do you feel that's appropriate?
Again, look at Mr. Laufer's letter. The law is the law. We follow the law.
Two more questions.
Yeah.
On the Laufer letter, one of the things that he mentions is that it appeared that Risa Sugarman had willfully, in his words, misunderstood or disregarded the law, as you're saying. You know, you have two now prosecutorial agencies who are investigating this. Do you think that they are misunderstanding the law?
Again, I don't draw conclusions. I raise questions where I have questions. And I think in the instance of that Board of Elections memo, it's just too convenient to be possibly believable. That suddenly this memo is created referring only to one person and their colleagues who was supporting a change in the state Senate, but leaving out everyone else who was supporting a change in the state Senate, that is very narrowly drawn with no reference to the actual election law, and then conveniently leaked to the media and to a specific reporter and a specific outlet. Now, if you want to follow an interesting set of evidence, there you have it. A lot of interesting facts, but my job is not to investigate the facts. That's where all of you come in. Right there, please.
Mr. Mayor, you've been a huge supporter of the St. Pat's for All parade over in Sunnyside.
Yes.
And you understand why the organizers are so upset that a Chick-fil-A is opening at the Queens Center Mall 1 mile away.
I do, but again, it is a country in which people have a right to open a business. So I think it's what the ownership of Chick-fil-A has said is wrong. And I'm certainly not going to patronize them, and I wouldn't urge any other New Yorker to patronize them, but they do have a legal right. Yes, last call in the back. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, do you feel that you're a political target? If so, why? And who specifically do you think is targeting you?
Look, I would only generalize that question. That's the way I'd be comfortable answering it. I think we have come here to change a lot of things. And when people change a lot of things, they generate opposition. That's age-old. And the opposition takes many forms, and it never surprises me. We're going to keep doing the work that we told the people of this city we would do. And I'm very, very comfortable that different people can look into anything they want, and they're going to find everything was done legally and appropriately. But again, it never surprises me, like the example I gave about the Board of Elections memo. It never surprises me when things like that happen. I'm not so naive as to believe they happen spontaneously. I leave it up to all of you to figure out how the different lines connect. But yes, it's typical that when you make change, you'll encounter opposition. It's typical when you make change, some double standards will be held. But we just keep doing the work. That's where I land. We keep doing the work. Thank you, everyone.